Jessica Chen's phone wouldn't stop vibrating. 12 missed calls from an Illinois number from her old neighborhood.
Mrs. Calloway? What's going on?
The neighbor's voice was shaky. Jessica, they put the house on the market. There's a sold sign on the lawn. I thought you should know. Then she opened the text from her mother. It read, "It wasn't yours to keep anyway."
They sold it. The house Nana and I built a life in, and they didn't say a word.
But Jessica's mind was already calculating, because she knew something her parents didn't. 3 years ago, when they needed a private mortgage for the Victorians' basement renovation, the lender wasn't a bank. The lender was a trust she'd set up anonymously, a trust that had already filed foreclosure proceedings 11 weeks ago.
They defaulted 6 months ago. All that money went to Brandon's startup. Now they've sold a house they legally can't sell.
She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She unlocked her phone and dialed the one person who could turn this betrayal into a reckoning.
Patrick, it's Jessica. My parents sold the Victorian. Pull the trust file.
3 years earlier, the phone had rung with a very different request. Her mother's voice had been sweet, dangerously sweet. "We need a small loan for the basement renovation, just $400,000.
She'd seen it coming. Brandon's latest venture was collapsing, and they were scraping together cash.
So she had offered a solution, a private mortgage, arranged through a trust with no family names attached. The Chen Family Trust. On paper, an anonymous real estate holding. In reality, Jessica's insurance policy. And while she signed, a memory surfaced of her grandmother years ago in the garden.
This house holds our love. Don't let them erase it.
She'd made that promise at 14. She was keeping it at 29.
Now, 3 years later, that promise had become a loaded gun, and Sandra had just handed her the trigger. 2 hours later, in her downtown office, Jessica sat across from Patrick Mercer as he opened a thick folder.
The trust filed foreclosure 11 weeks ago. Your parents haven't paid in 6 months. The sale they made to the new buyer? Title is void. Insurance won't cover it.
He slid the foreclosure notice across the desk. It had been filed 2 months before the sale.
They sold a house that wasn't theirs. Now the buyer will sue them for fraud.
A second document confirmed the voided title insurance letter, already mailed to the buyers.
What's the foreclosure price and the damage they're facing?
$310,000. They'll owe the $90,000 gap, plus 6 months of missed payments.
That's all I need. I'll reclaim the house, and they'll pay me for the privilege.
She dialed her mother and spoke 3 words that sounded like an invitation, but felt like a summons. Dinner. Saturday. 7. In the Chen living room, Sandra answered with a laugh that didn't reach her eyes.
Dinner? How lovely. You finally got over that silly house nonsense, I hope.
Tell her Brandon's new marketing platform is already doubling revenue. She should be proud of us.
They haven't asked about me once. They're already spending the money in their heads.
That night, she cleared the Marble Island and laid out 3 documents like a dealer revealing a winning hand. Foreclosure notice, voided title insurance letter, and a settlement offer drafted with surgical precision.
One to prove what they did, one to show what it cost, one to make them an offer they can't refuse but will hate.
Saturday at noon, Jessica zipped her navy blazer and checked her reflection, not for approval, but for intimidation.
Nana, I hope you're watching. Tonight I bring your house home.
She picked up the leather folder and walked out the door into a city that had no idea what was about to happen. At the upscale restaurant Ironwood, Sandra was already mid-laugh when Jessica sat down, a bucket of champagne open.
Your brother's new platform is visionary. The house was just sitting there. You know we had to fund his launch.
You should thank us. That old place was a money pit. Now Brandon has real capital. We did the smart thing.
Is that right?
$740. It covered the renovation loan and gave Brandon a fighting chance. He's going to make us all proud.
He's finally focused. This time it's the real deal. I can feel it.
Jessica's expression remained unreadable. She let the silence stretch until Sandra's smile flickered.
You're very quiet. Still bitter about that old house. You never even visited after Nana got sick.
I came to have dinner, not a fight. Let's order.
The waiter arrived with menus, and for a moment the table was filled with small talk. But the folder beside Jessica's chair was a promise. After the server took their orders, Jessica set her menu down and let the last polite word dissolve into silence.
Before the food arrives, there's something you need to see.
She opened the leather folder and slid a single page across the tablecloth, its official seal catching the candlelight. At the top, in heavy court serif, the words notice of foreclosure and a filing date 11 weeks earlier.
What is this? A joke?
This is a clerical error. We paid that loan off from the sale.
No, you didn't. The trust that lent you $400,000 never received a dime from escrow because the title was already under a cloud.
She let the word trust hang in the air like smoke. Sandra's champagne glass stopped halfway to her lips.
I don't understand. What trust? We borrowed from a private lender, anonymous.
Exactly. And that anonymous lender initiated foreclosure months before you listed the house. The buyer's title insurance is void. Their lawyer is drafting a lawsuit right now.
Before either parent could speak, Jessica pulled a second sheet from her folder and laid it precisely next to the first. The letterhead read, Title Insurance Company of Illinois. Notice of void coverage, effective as of the sale date.
You had this mailed to the buyer?
You're destroying us. Over what? A grudge?
It's not a grudge. It's a legal consequence. I know because I'm the sole trustee of the Chen Family Trust. I'm the lender you defaulted on.
No. You were 29. You couldn't have.
Our own daughter. You lent us the money just to trap us.
A heavy silence settled over the table, broken only by the distant clink of silverware from other diners.
You never asked where the money came from. You just spent it on Brandon, the same way you spent this house.
Then she placed the third document on the table, a settlement offer with a deadline shorter than their escape routes.
The trust buys the house at foreclosure price, $310,000. You owe me the $90,000 gap plus 6 months of missed payments.
You'd ruin your own family for a moldy old house? Brandon is your brother.
We'll see you in court. A jury will understand. This is entrapment.
You sold a house with a void title. A judge will call it fraud, not a family squabble.
She tapped the settlement offer once, as if marking a cell door shut.
Refuse and the buyer sues you for the full $740 plus legal fees. The trust pursues you separately for the unpaid mortgage. Choose wisely.
You'd take your own parents to court?
You took my home. I'm taking it back. You have until Monday to sign.
She slid the foreclosure notice back toward them, keeping the other documents, and stood. Sandra's hand trembled above the document. Donald did not reach for his wine. They had just been given a deadline and they knew it. Back at their house, Sandra's fingers shook as she dialed Brandon's number for the 5th time.
Brandon, pick up, please. We need you.
When the call finally connected, the voice on the other end was distant and irritated.
What now? I'm in the middle of a launch.
Your sister is suing us. She had a secret trust. We're going to lose everything.
Not my problem. I told you not to sell the house without checking the title.
Then his line went dead. Donald slammed his fist on the kitchen counter. Meanwhile, in her office, Jessica listened as Patrick confirmed the buyer's attorney had filed a fraud complaint.
They're going for blood. Your parents have 72 hours before it hits the court docket.
The trap is set now. They learn who really matters.
The next morning, a grim consultation with a family attorney confirmed everything Jessica had said. The lawyer's words were blunt. You committed fraud. No court will side with you.
We'll go to Jessica. There has to be a way out.
She's not going to listen to us. She planned this.
They arrived at Jessica's office unannounced, faces ashen, bypassing the assistant's protest.
We raised you. We made mistakes, but this is family. Please, we'll do anything.
The terms are non-negotiable. The trust requires the debt satisfied.
We can pay you back gradually, $50,000 up front, the rest over 5 years.
You have 48 hours. Sign, or I'll file the complaint and the fraud charges.
As the elevator doors closed, Sandra's legs gave out in the hallway. Donald caught her, but she was already braking. That evening, alone in her office, a memory from 17 years ago dug its way to the surface.
You see this house, Jesse? It's where I taught you to plant seeds and stand tall.
It's the only place that feels safe, Nana.
Then make me a promise, child. No matter what, this house stays in the family. It's our story.
I promise.
But when Margaret suffered a stroke, Sandra and Donald moved in. Within a year, her rose bushes were replaced with Brandon's old gym equipment. They erased her without a second thought. That was the day Jessica realized her parents would burn anything for Brandon's fire. Now, sitting in her chair, Jessica pulled out an old photograph, her and Nana on the porch, the key between them.
I kept my promise, Nana. I'm bringing the house back to us.
The weight of 48 hours pressed on the room, but Jessica's resolve was no longer forged in anger. It was forged in loyalty. The next morning, Jessica used her spare key and stepped into the Victorian alone. The air was still and thick with memory. She paused in the kitchen where Nana's recipe box still hung crooked on the wall. Empty, but not forgotten.
They tried to strip every trace of her, but they couldn't touch what she built in me.
Upstairs, the attic stairs creaked under her weight. She knelt in the dust and opened a box marked, "Margaret, keep." Inside, beneath old linens, she found a yellowed photograph, herself at 10, holding Nana's hand on the porch.
We're almost there, Nana.
Carefully, she folded the photo into her pocket. Then she noticed a small brass key, the very one Nana gave her, taped to the bottom of the box.
You knew I'd come back.
She locked the attic behind her and walked outside. The sold sign was still on the lawn, but in 48 hours, it would mean nothing. She drove away with the key on the passenger seat. No more hesitation. No more doubt. Monday morning arrived like a verdict. Jessica laid the settlement agreement on her marble island, a pen beside it. When the buzzer sounded, she opened the door to Sandra and Donald, pale, exhausted, their last arguments already lost.
We'll sign. But first you need to know something. You were never ours. Not really. I couldn't carry a child. We used a donor. You were a project.
So that's why Brandon was always the priority. I was never their real daughter. Sign. Now.
Donald took the pen first, his hand shaking as he scratched his name across the bottom. Sandra's signature followed, smudged with a tear. The pen clattered to the counter. Jessica slid the signed document toward herself, her fingers steady. The air in the room shifted. When the door clicked shut, Jessica looked at the signed settlement and let a single breath shudder out. It was done. By mid-afternoon, the settlement was filed. Patrick Mercer slid the certified title transfer across his desk.
It's done. The buyer is whole. Your parents are legally on the hook for the debt. The house is yours.
She stared at the deed and felt a strange, hollow calm. She'd won, but the silence was deafening.
An hour later, she stood alone in the Victorian's empty living room. The sold sign was gone. The air was still.
Victory looks different here. It echoes. It needs her.
She pulled out the worn photograph, her and Nana on the porch, and placed it on the empty windowsill.
I kept my promise, Nana. Now I need you here.
She dialed. On the second ring, a frail but warm voice answered.
Nana? It's back. The house is ours again.
Through the tears, she heard her grandmother's soft laugh, but the rooms around her were still empty, waiting to be filled.
You did it, Jesse. You kept your promise. I never doubted you.
Nana, I want you here. The house is yours. $1 a month. Please, come home.
Margaret wept, her voice breaking as she said yes again and again. After the call, she dragged the boxes labeled Brandon's launch to the curb. Beneath a pile of old bank statements, she found a letter in her grandmother's handwriting. It began, "My dear Jessie, if you are reading this, you've done what I always believed you would. You took back what they tried to steal. Now fill this house with love again."
She knew. All along, she knew I'd be the one to fight for this.
She folded the letter into her pocket with the brass key, then lifted the last box of Nana's things. By evening, the house was cleared of them. Only the scent of old cedar and Margaret's china remained. As the car turned into the driveway, Margaret gasped. The Victorian stood freshly painted, its porch swept clean.
It's just as I dreamed it, Jessie.
Jessica helped her up the front steps. The attic key hung on a silk ribbon in her hand. Inside the threshold, Margaret stopped. The scent of cedar and fresh coffee filled the hall.
You saved it. You saved us.
Jessica guided her to the sunroom, where morning light spilled across the original wood floor.
It's exactly as I left it in my heart.
Jessica folded the ribbon and placed the key in her grandmother's open palm. Margaret sank into her old rocking chair by the window, the one her own mother had rocked her in. For the first time in years, the house exhaled. It was alive. Weeks later, Jessica and Margaret sat on the porch steps, looking out at the rose garden they had replanted together. The scent of jasmine drifted on the evening air. It was the peace Margaret had dreamed of. But across town, in a cramped one-bedroom apartment, Sandra Chen sat alone with a photograph. She traced the outline of a young Brandon, her expression hollow. Donald stood by the refrigerator, reading a foreclosure notice, this one for their apartment. The $90,000 debt had swallowed their savings, their house, now this. Meanwhile, Brandon's latest startup had cratered. He had stopped answering calls entirely. The last text he sent read, "Stop calling me." Then silence.
Jessica watched her grandmother laugh at a hummingbird and felt no triumph, only a quiet, deep certainty.
The score was settled. But for Jessica, it had never been about revenge. It was about restoration. On a crisp autumn evening, the Victorian glowed from within. Friends climbed the porch steps with wine bottles and laughter.
To the shrewdest real estate move I've ever seen, and the most deserved.
This house has its soul back. I can feel it in every floorboard.
It wasn't just the house, Nana. It was us.
She walked to the living room mantel and placed a small frame beside the old photograph.
Is that my rent?
The most important dollar I'll ever collect. It's proof you're home.
Laughter filled the room, bouncing off the original tin ceiling and out into the evening. Jessica stepped onto the porch and watched the quiet street where she'd grown up, now hers, now safe. She allowed herself a smile, not for victory, but for home. When the last guest had gone, the house fell quiet. Margaret found Jessica on the porch swing, a blanket over her lap.
You brought me back to our beginning, Jessie. I never thought I'd sit on this swing again.
No, Nana, you never left it. It waited for you just like I did.
They swayed gently, the old chain creaking a familiar rhythm. Overhead, stars pricked through the autumn sky.
I watched them try to break you year after year, but you never broke. You just grew straighter.
You gave me roots when they tried to pull me apart. This house isn't just boards and paint, it's proof that love can outlast neglect.
Then we won. We really won.
They sat in the quiet, the swing rocking just enough to stir the cold air. No more words were needed. The Victorian stood behind them, every window warm. It was no longer a battleground. It was simply home. And somewhere deep in the garden, the first rose of the season was quietly blooming. In the cramped apartment, Sandra Chen tore open an official envelope. The court summons inside made her hands shake.
They're garnishing what's left. Donald, we can't pay this.
Donald didn't answer. He'd been gripping his left arm since morning, but he told no one. That night, while Donald slept restlessly, Sandra dialed a number she'd sworn she'd erase.
Jessica, please, just call me back. I know I don't deserve it, but please.
Miles away, the phone vibrated on a wooden bench beside a bed of fresh soil. Jessica glanced at the screen. Sandra Chen. She let it ring.
That chapter is closed. I won't open it again.
She pressed the silent button and turned the phone face down on the bench.
Show me where the next one goes, Nana.
1 year later, the Victorian had become what it was always meant to be. Not a relic, a home. Inside, the kitchen smelled of cinnamon and laughter. Margaret stood by the stove, dusting flour from her hands.
You're home early. Sit. The scones are almost ready.
They sat at the scrubbed wooden table, teacups warm between their hands. Out the window, the garden was a riot of color.
This is what we fought for, isn't it? Mornings like this.
Every board, every nail, every rose bush. It was worth it.
The rose Margaret had planted last autumn was now taller than the porch rail. No ghosts lingered in the hallways, only the scent of coffee and the sound of Margaret humming. Jessica looked out at the garden and felt something she hadn't dared to name before. Permanence. The Victorian stood solid against a blue sky, every window open, and inside it the kind of quiet that comes after a storm has finally passed. As dusk settled, the Victorian lit up like a lantern on the quiet street. On the porch, two silhouettes sat close, watching the stars emerge. The empty birdcage on the porch swayed gently in the evening breeze. It had held a canary decades ago. Now it held only air, and that was enough. Some homes are built with wood and nails. Others are built with promises kept. Jessica Chen had learned the difference. She hadn't just reclaimed a deed. She'd reclaimed a legacy of love. Her parents' mistakes were theirs to carry, but the Victorian belonged to those who had truly loved it. And as the stars climbed higher, the house stood not as a monument to a battle won, but as a promise finally kept. The porch light flickered once, then held steady, as if the house itself was breathing. And in the garden, the jasmine bloomed, scenting the night with peace.